Great. So it's the story is like even every time we watch it, we made it in 2012. 8 years have gone by. The message is still immediate and current, and every time we see, we get some more of the story and how it touches and impacts our life. And the topic remains current even till date, and that's what it's shocking, but it is true.
Director Underhill. Right. Director of Photography, Cinematographer, Arvid, the record. And he did some stuff. So we are open to answering any questions that you all might have about any of this process. We'll keep it short if we can.
How long did it take you to put this together, this film?
How long was that?
That's a great question.
It was
So Mike
a couple of
is
years.
yes, Mike is super busy. His number of engagement that he has is phenomenal, which is great. So every chance that we had a chance to sit with Mike to either rehearse or plan or film, it took us about 6-7 months to film this whole movie. But if we sat down, we could have done it in a week. Yeah. We don't have to wait for any other actors. But it took us about a year to put it all together because we did very traditional filmmaking, and all the effects are very old school. What you would have done in the 50s is what we did. Masking and working around and lining up shots. So technically it took us about a year just because we had our day jobs and also to be more factual and make sure that we got. But finding Mike was hard, but we did it.
And speaking of factual, that the part before we even started filming was years of research by Mike Wiley and performing this for years before we even started working on it. Of course, he's performed it years since, so we had the benefit of having him already develop these characters individually over years of time so that we could have very distinct characters and performances, which is pretty amazing to work with.
Which made it, coming into the filmmaking process, made it easier in some ways that I already knew the characters, already had the lines memorized, all of those things. So it only made the technical aspects, and there are so many technical aspects, the technical aspects hard because there are moments where, as an actor, you just want to be in the moment, and I have both of these guys going, if you do that again, your hand is going through the head of the other. You have to stop. Oh, sorry. I'll stop. I won't do it again. We do it again. You keep doing that. One of the hardest scenes was the train. Because there's two of me over there, and there's me walking down the aisle, and at the same time the train's not really moving. So I have to kind of walk as if the train is moving. And what I love about these guys is it's like, it looks great, except you're too far over. Let's do it again. Okay. I did too much touch. So it's so with that that process, it's really technical, really technical.
I feel like the movie was really powerful and well done, and I really appreciate all
Thank you.
the hard work all you put into it. What was the decision behind casting you as every single role in the movie?
It makes craft services easier. I think we all just kicked around the idea. I was surprised that they wanted to, as a solo play. I do it as a solo piece because I believe that audiences lean in further when it's a solo piece and when it's an African American playing all of those white characters, right? So, but as a film, any comments?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So imagine like you're in watching a stage play where Mike is on stage in front of a live audience, and he's going through these characters, very colorful. Each character has their warmth, or they are strong, or they are articulate. And he shows all of them with very few prop pieces that he takes with him on the stage. And he does it all together. But when it comes to filming and also to tell a story like this, it was really hard to make that decision because we don't know whether the audience will get it, which is very monochromatic in a way. And we wanted to make sure that, so that's the reason we started bringing a little bit of the wardrobe to be there, not to be overly done and doing makeup and all that. But we still brought that in as a cue, and also the backdrop was, so in the film process, we had a lot of liberties to make sure that we can resonate the story with the backdrop or with other scene partners who will be in different costumes. But imagine, he's been entertaining audience 10 years before this movie was even done, with all the research that he's done, developed these characters. I mean, you have court documents and stories that he's collected over the years, but then he's put real characters, find, like you say, male, age, what was their role, what is the upbringing of their family, how do they talk, how do they, their mannerisms, all of that, he's done that. So for us, it was much easier to do it on camera than he can on stage, but the show that he does on stage is incredible. Absolutely.
Arvin's my new agent.
Just a quick additional note. So to me, of course, one obvious thing about it is the hook. It's a huge hook to get people interested in giving it a try and seeing what it's about and learning more about the story, which of course is ultimately the goal, is to have as many people as possible know about the story, learn about it, and so to me as a director, it was at its core a storyteller's piece. So everything we did, and Arvin designing the photography for, and Mike's delivery were designed in such a way that you could be face to face with the actor in close-ups, and even in the wider shots, you felt like he was telling a story around the campfire kind of effects, you know. And in all of our history of human beings, in my opinion, the most powerful moments in our lives are when we're having a special moment with someone who tells a great story, more so than a great movie. Like, I saw a great movie. Well, I had this great story my uncle told me. Let me tell you about that. Right? That's, I think, the most powerful moments, and that's why I think we encapsulated with this kind of process.
And you're absolutely right. This fella, and then Daryl, I'll come back to you.
Just a quick one. So there's often a translation from, and we've seen other stage shows that get turned into movies. And you sort of touched on this, from the dramatic and the characterization. Are you still doing the stage show? Is it someplace we can see it?
Oh, the question was, am I still doing the stage show? I did it Thursday night in Tennessee, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I continue to do that. And in fact, this past spring at the North Carolina History Museum, I did 2 performances of that, and both nights were sold out. And then in the fall down at Temple. But I have a website, MikeWileyProductions.com, and my calendar is on there, and you can come and see any of those shows.
Everybody down there like it, like Wiley Productions.
Yeah, I just think that the technical work on this was just phenomenal, and that's an attribute of all 3 of them. So I just wanted to say that. I think
Baseball scene?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just the same, because I'm terrible at baseball. Terrible at sports in general. But you see what they managed to do with that?
So the real question I have in light of the issues that this story raises and how that resonates with each of you, especially in light of newer information, certainly, as we know with Tim Tyson's interview of Carolyn just right next door in Raleigh, the fact that that's where she was residing way after this, and we get other information. So how does that come into play relative to your thinking about this production? Not that I want, or we want you to revisit it, but what does it say for you relative to the story that you did tell, both as an actor, Mike, and you as filmmaker?
For me, I'm blessed to continue to do the play so that I can layer things within the. So when I originally did the research on this in between 2004 and the beginning of 2006, there actually were only a handful of books, actual books, dedicated to the story of Emmett Till. There were history books that had parts that were dedicated to Emmett Till, but there were only a handful, and when I say a handful, I mean there was Mamie Till Bradley's autobiography, there is the lynching of Emmett Till, there were just a handful of books, and I would say somewhere around 2008 or so, more books started to be written. And I think that is because the Black Lives Matter movement and the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and so on, so many innocent deaths. And Mamie had always said that she wanted her son's story to be a cautionary tale. And so these books, more books, started coming out. Books about other family members, books about Simeon Rai, and so on and so forth. So more information has come out. As I watch the film, there are moments where I go, is that something that has changed as far as what we know? And so far, because Carolyn Bryant's memory only allows her, we'll say her memory, only allows her to say that she cannot remember what happened in that store. That's all she can say, is that she cannot remember what happened in that store, but he didn't do what she said that he did. So each time I think about that, I think there's nothing to change yet, but perhaps one day.
And then the part B would be there's some creative license, of course, in making choices on characters choosing to do things so that we can tell a story in what we perceive could be a possible way that things took place. So most of the material is based on actual interviews and documentation, and even that, like I know Mike talked about this before, Bryant and JW, they had, even in their interview, was all over the place, like trying to make sense of it and put it into like an actual, like, okay, this happened, that happened, that happened. It's confusing at best, many times. And so in that case, you had to boil it down a lot too. So I feel like this movie is like it's meant to be a conversation, piece, to get people to talk about that and current affairs and that sort of thing.
One thing we do now know, though, and it's through the blood of Emmett Till, is Carolyn did say to Tim that she confirmed that it was more than just JW and Roy. And we knew somewhat through some eyewitness accounts that it was more than just JW and Roy, but now we know that it was, who specifically it was, and it was other brothers of theirs helping them that night.
Oh, okay.
What kind of plans do y'all have if you promote the movie, if you got special showings here, are y'all going to put out on the internet some way, or be it in regular theaters, like somewhere out there, or how y'all promoting the film and getting it out there?
The question is, how do we promote the film and get it out there? Well, right after we first made the film, it was Rob who kept sending it to film festivals. I mean, he did so much work to the reason that this film has even been seen period, is because of Rob's tireless commitment to sending it to film festivals, and that's, you know, we went to Berlin, we went to LA, we went to a number of places.
So this movie has been seen by 250 festivals or screenings so far, and I don't even know how many, we don't even keep track of the awards in 8 years. But people are watching, they are following, and also learning more facts, and it's also kind of a way for like a forum like this where people can talk and interact and have questions. But what is interesting is this conversation still remains current, and that's fascinating. And there's two things that I take away from this movie. One is individual actions and then society actions. So there's two parts. You can see that very clearly by each of the individuals talking and what they are trying to feel for themselves, and together, what is that actionable aspect. And it's just not changing one person, it's changing society, and then if the society changes, individual changes, it's kind of a cycle. But in this, we can see that both of them are at the extreme, so actions happen that cannot be reversed. But it is current even today, 65 years later, it still is current.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say thank you for the viewpoint. So I've seen like tons of documentaries on Emmett Till, and oftentimes you get this whole, well, we're not going to talk about that he might have been a little feisty, or you get this, he didn't do what he was accused of, but it seems like you meshed all of them together of okay, maybe he said something, but it wasn't like it was supposed as it was told. Maybe he was urged to do something, and so his kids played, and then you know, also his character, because you see 5 different documentaries, and there are 5 different points of view.
Perspectives. Yeah.
And I have to leave too, so I don't want to be disrespectful. But yeah, I appreciate that.
No, I completely understand, and thank you for saying that. You know, that originally with the play, the idea was, okay, how many different perspectives can we share in this? I always say, you know, and I didn't make this up. You know, there are three truths: your truth, my truth, and the truth. Right? So somewhere in the middle is the actual truth. So if we tell enough versions of people's version of the truth, somewhere in the center is the actual truth. For instance, Mamie Till always said, and she went to her grave saying this, that she would tell Emmett to whistle to clear out his stutter. Right? And there are some historians that say, no, it never was been documented by other people. Right? Mamie always said, and you know, I'm a trusted voice, or what other people are saying. In addition to that, Wheeler Parker has said, no, he whistled at her. So his cousin says he whistled at her. Mamie believes that he was clearing out a stutter. I always say this because I was once a 14-year-old boy. If you whistle to clear out a stutter, and yet your cousins all around you said, man, I can't believe you did that, man. I can't believe you're crazy. And you did not completely understand the taboos, right? What are you going to say? Are you going to say, no, I mean, my mama told me to do that? Or are you going to say, yeah, I did. Of course you're going to say, yeah, I did. So that's the truth that I have come to about that particular moment. We'll take a couple more before.
That was a very powerful, moving show for one person to cast in all them parts like that. I must applaud you. Eddie Murphy ain't got nothing on you. Hercules. But let me ask you this right here though. If you do all any more documentations on different kind of stories, are you gonna do it individually, or are you gonna include anybody else on the next thing? And also, do you do any other documentaries outside of Cary?
I do 7 different solo plays.
Wow.
In rep, meaning each day I might do I'll do a different performance. Last night I was at the Cary Arts Center and did Breach of Peace, which is about the Freedom Riders. Tomorrow I'll be in West Jefferson doing the Brown versus Board of Education. On Thursday I'll be at Middle Creek Elementary doing Jackie Robinson. On Friday I'll be at the Cary Theater in Roxborough doing my play about Box Brown, the slave who mailed himself to
So
freedom.
you got something going on this week?
I guess I'm going all the time. But look me up, Mike Wiley Productions, and you'll see I have a full calendar of where I'm going to be, and you can come and see any of those, as long as it's not in an elementary school, because that would be odd. But anywhere else, you can absolutely come. We just confirmed that I'll be doing 10 days of performances of Blood Doesn't Sign My Name in Sanford in the fall. So those of you who have not had an opportunity to see that, come see. Come see that. Yes.
It sounds like you're awfully busy. Do you have any future projects or projects that you're working on that you look forward to?
So this summer at Theater Raleigh, one of my very dear friends, Howard Kraft, and I wrote a play called Piece of Clay. We're not in it, but we wrote it together. It's a great play, and it will premiere the middle of July. So that's coming up. We're currently putting some rewrites on that, but that's coming up in July. And there are probably other things that I'm forgetting right now, but certainly there's always something on the horizon. Thank you very much. And this sweet lady in the white tam that's been waiting.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I had an opportunity to meet Mrs. Teal in about '86. I happened to be on a trip with the Commission of Racial Justice for the United Church of Christ. They did a bus tour in Chicago, and this was so many years after his passing. But she spoke at a church there where I was, and this was so emotional. I mean, it was intense that she's kept up that fight and that emotion all of these years. I just mentioned that, but this is my question. For a number of years, I have read about this play, and you titled it Dar He. And I've always missed for several years seeing it, so I had to see it today because I've always been wondering, what does Dar He mean? And so today, I finally realized what it meant. But my question to you is, as the writer, you chose that for a special reason. And of course, I get the term courage from it now that I quickly think about it. But you may have a completely different, deeper meaning. And I have a second point to ask, so I'm going to ask it now so you can answer both at the same time. The second thing is that
Faith in my memory.
but it's going to be quick. The woman who accused him before her death.
She's still alive.
Is she?
Yeah.
Well, she recanted it.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if that would have prompted you to do an epilogue or something, or how does that reshape your story? Or, I mean, you can't miss telling that. And so what would you do? You understand my question?
I do, and
Before you answer that,
Sure.
real quick, let's do a selfie. Now your memory, Mike.
Oh man. You hit the nail on the head when you said Dar He, the courage. right? The courage of Moses Wright, right? Listen to the name, Moses Wright, right? Moses Wright, the courage of him to stand up there in that Mississippi courtroom and point at those men and say, Dar He go right there, right? And just the courage of him being able, there's several people probably going, just point that out, right? So the courage of him doing that, right? Because his story in some ways gets lost, right? His courage gets lost because he had to walk out of that courtroom, be put in a car, and taken to Chicago because he would have been killed. He would have been killed. The only time he came back was because he was a farmer, a sharecropper, because he came back to harvest his crops, right? To harvest his cotton. But he didn't sleep in his house when he came back. He slept in the fields. And he said he could hear them shooting his house at night when he was there. So he had to come back because that's a lot of money to leave, right? But he became an elevator operator in Chicago, and part of the family disowned him. Other part of the family thought of him as heroic. So I just felt in the research process of this that I needed to lift him.